Let us quickly discuss today's question, and as most of the students wanted us to scale the level of difficulty of the questions that we are giving to you, so we have given this question difficulty level of moderate. Okay, why moderate only? See, the question is fairly simple. You just had to figure out which is that scholar which is being asked in the question. Okay, we have not intentionally given the name of that scholar because anomie is something that is dealt with by only two scholars mainly. Okay, mainly exclusively, that is one Durkheim, second one was Merton. So it was up to you to contextualize this question on the basis of your understanding of anomie. Okay, now some of the people may have written or have also written Durkheim in this question, and I'll also explain why Durkheim is not so valid, although it is not wrong if you mention Durkheim, but the focus should be on Merton. Okay, why Merton and not Durkheim is something that I'll be discussing in the course of this discussion. Okay, so let us quickly start discussion on this question. So first step should be to read the question, discuss how anomie is rooted in social structure, and how do you contextualize the strain theory in the Indian society, which means you have to explain the relevance of strain theory in the Indian society. Now, second step is to identify the keyword in the questions. The keywords are very much clear. First is anomie, something that I've already encircled. Second is social structure. It is, yes, it is very important. We cannot ignore this keyword, social structure. I explain because this is what differentiates the idea of anomie given by Durkheim from Merton. Okay, since especially it is the word, because of this word rooted in social structure is something that makes Merton's version of anomie different from Durkheim. So that makes it very important. The third important keyword is strain theory. Okay, now what is that one word or the concept that we should start our answer off with is the third step. See, whether you talk about anomie or strain, or whether you talk about deviance, some people read it as deviance typology, some people read it as theory of anomie, some people read it as strain theory. All of them mean one and the same thing. But Merton has used strain specifically in a specific context, which is although very much related to the concept of anomie, but I'll tell exactly where strain is explicitly used, although all the three mean one and the same thing. Okay, just to simplify, this should be very much clear that anomie is not different from strain theory. So let us quickly start with the definition of anomie itself. Now, when it comes to the definition aspect, we have two choices. One, to start with the definition given by Durkheim on anomie, and second is to start with the definition given by Merton on anomie. Either you may start with Durkheim or you may start with Merton. There's nothing wrong about it. But remember, if you start your answer with Durkheim, you then have to, in the next step, also explain how this definition of Durkheim, anomie given by Durkheim on anomie, is different from Merton's version of anomie. Okay, but we have started the other way around. We have started with the definition of anomie given by Merton. And how does he define it? Before giving you the definition, let me tell you one very simple story. It is not a story, it is simply an example. Okay, just to give you a glimpse of the theory of anomie given by Merton. This will help you to understand his theory in relatively better fashion, in case some of you have not grabbed that understanding. Okay, for example, let me talk about a small child. A small child is born in a BPL family, below poverty line family. Okay. Now, since he is born in a very BPL family, obviously his life chances are very low in comparison to someone who is born to an urban middle class family or someone who is born to an elite family, right? Now consider both these children, one born to urban middle class family, second born to a slum dweller family. Both of them want to become IAS officer, right? But who do you think have better life chances to become IAS officer? See, like for example, in Indian society, Let us take, for instance, that the culturally defined goal, okay, that means the larger goal of the youth in the age group of 20 to 30 is mainly either to earn as much money as possible or to become as powerful as possible. To have as much money as possible can be, you can earn as much money as possible if you are recruited by great IT corporation, IT corporation like Microsoft, Google, something. Okay, something that children from the age group of 20 to 30 boast a lot about. Okay. Secondly, you have opportunity to become IAS officer or to get into the prestigious civil services. So these are normally accepted as the culturally defined goal of those people who are in this age group. Okay, the demographic dividend that we talk about often. Okay, except those people who are beyond 40. Okay, now the problem is that the children from the slum dweller family may not have that much life chances, since he cannot afford to take coaching in Vajiram or big coaching industries. Okay, or he cannot afford to have coaching for IITs in Kota. So obviously the working class is going to reproduce another working class generation in that case. However, in the case of middle class family, since he has got all the opportunities available before him, so he will get opportunity to have admission in IIT, get coached at Kota, and then complete BTech, and then come to Delhi, join Wajiram, and then he may become IAS officer as well. Now, a simple commonsensical man would say that it was because of his merit that he became IAS officer. But is it true? Merton would say, or Marxist would say, let me come to Merton after this. Marxist would say that it was not individual merit, rather it was the class position of that middle class child that he could afford to take coaching in IIT and then complete BTech and then go into Vajiram, etc. Although this is something I'm telling you intentionally just to make you understand the conceptual things that revolve around Merton's theory of anomie. Okay, because Merton is highly inspired not just by Parson, although he's a big critic to Parson, but he's very much influenced by Parson's writing as well. But he is very much influenced by the writing of Weber, Marx, Durkheim as well. And that is why it is very logical on the part of UPSC to include it on the number 4th after Parson, because he is a mix of all the preceding three scholars. Okay, so he talks about life chances as well. He talks about, he is a bit of Marxist since he talks about dysfunctions as well. Okay, he talks about culturally defined goal, which is one of the things that Parson discusses in his theory of cultural system. So a cultural system, regulates individual or lays out certain norms which are supposed to be followed by individuals, and it is this cultural system in which Merton finds certain flaws, because he believes this cultural system, although seems to be very open and talks about equality of opportunity to everyone, but this equality of opportunity is not equally available to everyone. Okay, and this is something that I've explained through the example that I talked about, through two different children born to two different set of families. Now let us come to the definition of anomie. Yes, so what is anomie? The disjunction, which means imbalance, between culturally defined goals, someone who wants to become IAS officer is a culturally defined goal, and socially legitimate means the opportunity is available before him. These things may not match. Okay, and this creates strain. This creates strain, which means that opportunities are not equally available to everyone. However, goals are very much open to everyone, that you may become whatever you want because it is meritocratic society. It is based on equality of opportunity. Everyone is given equal chance irrespective of their race, caste, class, gender, ethnicity, etc. Okay, but the life chances are not equally given. Okay, so this automatically creates strain among the individuals. This imbalance creates the situation of strain. Okay. However, unlike Durkheim, who also talked about anomie and who attributed anomie to the normless phase in society, a phase which society enters into inevitably with a great social transformative period. Unlike Durkheim, Merton clearly says that the very cause of anomie can be traced to the societal norm itself, and not to the absence of norm but to the presence of norm itself. So basically, if that individual is facing strain in his life, it is only because of the goal that society had institutionalized in the first place. Okay, had society not talk about such goals that material success, or the success in power structure, something, all these things, if society had not laid out any such goal before the people, there would have been no struggle among the individuals, there would have been no competition, there would have been no competitive exam, there would have been no race. Okay, and there would have been no such situation where strain is produced among the individuals. Okay, and how else would we explain suicide? It is only because of this strain that people commit suicide. Okay, when there is imbalance between what society tells them to follow and what they are not able to follow. Now, Merton developed strain theory. Why did he develop this strain theory is also equally important for us to understand. He developed this theory to address the cause behind a rising rate of crime in USA in 1940s. Suddenly he believed in 1940s that the crime rate was increasing. He was not able to understand why is so. In order to address, see, this was his research question, why crime rate is rising in USA. Okay, in order to address this question, he delved into theoretical details. Okay, and he went through some literature. There are many theories given on criminology by psychology, by cultural sciences. There are many different theories. Biological sciences also deal with criminological behavior. Okay, and there is Marxist theory of deviance as well. There are so many theories to explain why people become criminal. However, Merton came out with his own version. After having gone through that literature, he developed his own theory. And he believed that anomie is the result of this society itself, the culturally defined goal itself, and not because those biological traits, not because of psychological instincts, okay, not because of lack of proper socialization, or not because of something else, but only because of this goal that society institutionalized. Okay, since nobody is equally placed, not everyone is equally placed to achieve those goals. Okay, now, since it creates strain, the question was how people deal with this strain. Everybody is differently placed in different social contexts. How different people adapt to the strain was his next step in the question. And that is why he talks about typology. Every individual has different technique to adapt to the strain, and that is why every individual is of different type in the language of Merton. And what is that typology? This is that typology. Different people adapt differently to the strain. This is adaptation technique. One technique is conformity. People who adapt and who adapt conformity, they become conformist. Okay, conformists are those who have proper means available before them, life chances, that means. And since they have life chances, they are easily able to achieve those goals. Okay, like for example, a child of IAS officer, like for example, Tina Dabi. Her parents were into the services. Okay, and she was therefore better and relatively better placed in comparison to other people who may not have had such an upbringing or such a family. Cultural capital, to a very large extent, influence. Okay, it is how the culture capital is reproduced from one generation to another generation. So since she had means, she could achieve the goals, and therefore there is no reason for her to become criminal because she has got proper means. Okay. Second strategy to adapt with the strain is known as innovation. The people who innovate to adapt to the strain become innovators. Now, who are the innovators? Those who accept the goals, who want to become IAS officer or who want to become businessmen, but they do not have enough means, or not socially legitimate means in their hand. What are socially legitimate means? For example, if you want to become a billionaire, what would your parents suggest you? They would ask you to study accordingly, get educated properly. They would ask you to go to foreign university if you want to become billionaire. Okay, which means socially legitimate means are work and education. But what if you do not have enough money to go abroad and to get educated? Okay, in that case, what would you do? You would resort to money laundering, right? You would resort to something that is illegitimate. You have accepted the goal. You want to become billionaire, but since you do not have enough life chances, enough opportunity because of your class position or anything, because of your caste or even because of your sexuality. Okay, think about transgender who wants to become billionaire but he cannot. So what would he or she do? He may become a sex worker. Okay, he or she or it may become a porn star in America. Anything. Everyone is differently socially placed in society. Okay, but everyone, in order to gratify, in order to achieve those goals, would resort to different strategy. And innovators are those who do not accept means, they simply accept goals. And that is why they, in the language of Merton, would be called as criminal, because they have not gone by the socially legitimate means. Third step would be those people who adapt to the strain through the strategy of retreatism. Those people are known as retreatists. These are those people who neither accept to the means nor they are any concerned about culturally defined goals in society. Okay, for example, hippie, or think about those people who are, so much fascinated by the idea of traveling in the hills. Every day you would see them uploading pictures on Facebook and Instagram, showing showing to you that this is what the life is all about: to go to Himalayas, to have peace, to have peace of mind, and nothing is there in the material life. Think about those people. Those are retreatists. Okay, I'm not saying nor Merton did say that everyone become that an individual is retreatist forever. He never said anything like this, because this theory is very much grounded in nature. It was a specific case study that he was trying to understand. The reason was that why crime rate was increasing in 1940. This is why he developed it. Obviously, they are criminal because they are neither resorting to proper means or goals. The fourth one are ritualists. The people who adapt to the strain in a different manner through the strategy of ritualism are known as ritualists. These people are those who conform to the socially legitimate means. However, they do not have so much aspiration in their life. They are okay with a 9 to 6 job. But they are not so much bothered about promotion or competition. Okay, or think about the position of Dalits in society. They are not so much bothered about, or they are not, since the structural condition of Indian society or caste structure, if you look into, you will see that somehow the position of Dalits in the hierarchy of caste is has been institutionalized in such a manner that they somehow do not develop those aspirations. And this explains why even after 75 odd years of independence, most of the people who belong to Dalit category or SC STs, they are still very much associated with those occupations that were something considerably they were looked down upon as by the upper caste people at one point of time. Okay, so which simply means that they have not achieved enough social mobility. Okay, so again, crime rate. Now I'll come to the Indian aspect as well, because we have to contextualize the same thing in the Indian society parallelly with the Indian examples. Okay, the last one I would explain is those people who, although they conform to goals, they conform to means, but their own goals and their own means. They are not conforming to the larger societal goals or larger socially legitimate means. They are basically known as subculture. Okay, or you may also call as counterculture group. Okay, subculture, why? Because they are part of that culture. Counterculture, because they are not conforming to the larger culturally defined goal or largely socially legitimate means. And this also explains why Merton's theory is also known as subculture theory of deviance. Okay, now let us come to the third aspect, the critique. Okay, see, the critique is purely contextualized in the case of Indian society. For example, first is that it cannot explain vandalism. Merton's theory cannot explain vandalism. Vandalism means anything, any crime for fun, or any crime that is not associated with the pursuit of obtaining material success, but it is simply one of the window to release your anger, or a medium to stage protest, okay, or a symbol to stage protest. Like for example, think about reservation demands made by dominant communities or caste in India like Jat, Gujar. Okay, think about that time when those people had vandalized malls, roads, street roads, okay, and that is also a criminal activity, but that crime was not to pursue material success, okay, but this cannot be explained through Merton's theory of deviance. Mob lynching cannot be explained through Merton's theory of deviance. That is also crime. Again, crime against women, Brahminical patriarchy, or crime against Dalit women, rape, marital rape, okay, anything, domestic abuse. These are something which cannot, these are also criminal tendencies, but cannot be explained through Merton's theory of deviance. Why those people, despite belonging to well-off position, despite having socially legitimate means and culturally defined goals and enough chance to achieve culturally defined goals, why they still resort to such stupid tasks, okay. The second thing is reliance on official statistics. See, according to National Crime Record Bureau, the fact is that most of the crime which happen against Dalit women, okay, are often unreported. Basically, the conviction rate against uh, the upper caste women is very high. In the sense, conviction rate against the accusers of the rape against upper caste women are very high. That is, it goes up to 25% in comparison to the conviction rate in cases of rape against Dalit women, okay, which is as low as 2% only according to NCRB data, okay. That simply explains that somehow if you rely simply on official statistics, it will eventually underestimate the upper caste crime and highlight only the lower caste or lower or the tribal crimes, okay. We also have case like criminal tribes, okay, although we talk about denotification as well, but still there are criminal tribes as well. So we identify a tribal position, social location with a criminal tendency. So this is something that cannot be explained through Merton's theory, okay. Why the state, in case of rape like that of Nirbhaya case or Reddy case in Andhra, in both the cases were upper caste women, and both the accusers in the cases were convicted properly and hanged or were given imprisonment. But in the case of Hathras, the accuser, since he belonged to the dominant community, that is Thakur, the same community to which uh, chief minister or the mainly power position leaders belong to, since she belonged to that community, the people or the state machinery was somehow reluctant to go against that accuser, since all of them had this affiliation to that particular caste, okay. This is something that cannot be explained through Merton's theory of deviance, okay. Why state highlights only one specific aspect of crime, and why other people from that specific caste go unreported, why their cases go unreported. Third, Merton, and this is something that is also highlighted by Kancha Elias Shepherd, who is a Dalit sociologist. Okay, so you may safely mention him without talking about CM being belonging, Chief Minister of UP belonging to Thakur community. This is not something that you have to write. I am simply trying to give you an example, but you can cite Kancha Elias Shepherd in that case. Okay. Third, it cannot explain why elite deviance takes place. Malia, Vijay Malia, Lalit Modi. These are those people who have got socially legitimate means, and they have enough life chances to become whatsoever they want, to become billionaire or even trillionaire, whatever they want. Still, why they commit crimes like the crime like money laundering or whatever, betting or gambling? Why do they commit such crimes? Okay, or why do they why most of the cases you will see that most of the banks whose NPAs are rising only because of such people who are not paying their loans on time. And this is something that explains a bias that state has toward these people are not convicted for the same crime, whereas farmer on the other hand, when they are taking loans, okay, somehow money lenders or government agents are putting a lot of pressure on the marginalized section to recover that money. So this explains that Merton's theory of deviance cannot explain why elite deviance is ignored by the state machinery, and why the deviance among the marginalized is often, followed by the state machinery. Okay, so these are some of the things that you could have mentioned. Also, see, for example, in Indian society, you may also discuss a very famous personality, that Harshad Mehta. Okay, Harshad Mehta was one person who can safely be categorized under the category of innovation. Why innovation? See, why innovation? Because he did not resort to socially legitimate means to become what he became. Okay, why not socially legitimate means? See, the insider trading or hedge funding is not considered as socially legitimate means. It is as fraudulent as using Bluetooth to become IAS officer. Some of the people, as you may be aware of, were found using such devices in the examination hall just 1 or 2 years back. One of them was IPS officer as well, who wanted to become IAS officer. Okay, these are some of the examples who are well placed in society, but still they are resorting to illegitimate means. So these are some of the things that you could have written in your answer to illustrate how this strain theory is valid in Indian society in different instances. Okay, so this was all about application of Merton's theory to the Indian society. Now, let us come to the homework question. Okay, yesterday's homework question first. Yesterday's homework question was question that we were supposed to cover yesterday itself, but somehow we could not cover. The question was discuss, यहाँ पे मैं लिख ही देता हूँ आराम से पहले, discuss different needs of society. Different needs of society according to structural functional paradigm, जो कि सिंपली आपसे पूछ रहा है कि टैलकट पार्सन की थ्योरी के थ्रू हम कैसे एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं द मेंटेनेंस ऑफ सोशल सिस्टम दैट इज सोसाइटी. व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट नीड्स ऑफ सोसाइटी. जैसे हर एक इंडिविजुअल की नीड होती है, जब वो फुलफिल हो जाती है तब जाके इंडिविजुअल सर्वाइव कर पाता है, वैसे ही सोसाइटी हैज ऑल्सो गॉट डिफरेंट नीड्स. व्हेन दोज नीड्स आर फुलफिल्ड, then society is able to maintain itself. This is what Talcott Parsons tried to explain through his structural functional theory. अब ये क्वेश्चन क्या था? Discuss different needs of society according to structural functional paradigm. Okay. See, to give you a very simple example, even before going into example, let me first draw the diagram, जो कि एक क्लासिक डायग्राम है. इसके थ्रू आपको समझ आ जाएगा what are the different needs of society. हमारी सबसे पहली नीड जो होती है, any individual has one specific need, that is adapting to the external environment. जब हम हिल स्टेशन पे जाते हैं, किसी हिल स्टेशन पे, मसूरी पे, उत्तराखंड में, ठीक है, तो हम जाते ही वहाँ पे शॉपिंग नहीं शुरू करते, घूमना शुरू नहीं करते, पहले हम टाइम लेते हैं, अडेप्ट करते हैं टू दी एक्सटर्नल इन्वायरमेंट. ठीक है, अडेप्टेशन प्रोसेस इज दी फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी डू, दैट एवरी इंडिविजुअल हैज टू अडेप्ट टू दी एक्सटर्नल इन्वायरमेंट. अगर आप कल को अमेरिका भी जाओगे बाहर पढ़ने के लिए, अडेप्ट करना पड़ेगा इंडिविजुअल को. वैसे ही सोसाइटी की भी अडेप्टिव नीड होती है टू दी एक्सटर्नल चेंजेस. ओके, एनी काइंड ऑफ चेंज इट कैन बी. ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल द चेंज विच वॉज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड in a heterogenetic form, the external change like LPG reforms of the 1990s is one thing that Indian society had to adapt to in order to maintain itself. Okay, so one need is adaptation. Second need is goal attainment. Third need is integration. And fourth need is latency. ये आपको I hope पता है. This was very basic question, and you had to explain that when all the four needs are fulfilled by different subsystems, like for example, adaptive need of the society is fulfilled by economic subsystem, economic system, which Parson calls as organismic system. Okay. Similarly, goal attainment needs are fulfilled by personality system. Which is known as political system. Integration need are fulfilled by सोसाइटल सिस्टम और सोशल सिस्टम, ठीक है। जनरली पूरे को हम सोशल सिस्टम बोलते हैं, इसलिए इसमें कंफ्यूजन ना हो तो इसलिए एंथनी गिडन्स इसको सोसाइटल सबसिस्टम भी बोलता है, सोसाइटल सबसिस्टम, okay, which is law. And the last is latency and pattern maintenance, which is also one of the need. Okay, latency basically क्या होता है? पैटर्न मेंटेनेंस, टेंशन मैनेजमेंट। हर एक इंडिविजुअल को एक लाइफ में एक पॉइंट के बाद स्ट्रेस आता है जिंदगी में, तो टेंशन मैनेजमेंट करने के लिए उसके फ्रेंड होते हैं, उसको पीयर सर्कल होता है, उसकी फैमिली होती है, उसकी वाइफ होती है, हस्बैंड होता है, ठीक है, या बेटा होता है, बेटी होती है। उसी तरह सोसाइटी ऑल्सो गोज थ्रू अ वेरी स्ट्रेनुअस पीरियड, specifically just when Durkheim talks about the phase of enemy, that is a strenuous period the society is going through, a revolutionary phase that society has to go through. That is in itself something that society has to adapt to, and something that society is it is something, a phase of stress that society is going through. What are those institutions that are going to take care of that stress that is being felt by the society is something that is explained by Talcott Parsons through education, religion, family. All of them are placed under cultural system. Okay, this is all about Talcott Parsons' different needs of society according to structural functional paradigm, and all these needs are the basic functional prerequisites. If these needs are not fulfilled, social equilibrium would not be able to maintained. Okay, so that is why these four different needs represent functional prerequisite. Functional prerequisite means the bare minimum things that have to be there in order for the society to maintain the social order, in order for the society to maintain peace, harmony, integration of all the systems, and to maintain the cooperation of or interdependency among different systems in a mutually coexistent fashion. The problem is if everything is so harmonious, if everything is so rosy, and if every subsystem is working in a very good fashion, then how do we explain the key problems in society like poverty? If economic subsystem is working properly, how do you explain the rising class inequality? So in that case, you also have to critique, right? If economy is working properly, how do you explain rising class inequality? How do you explain how do you explain the development of slums with the urbanization? Okay, how do you explain economic crisis, recessionary tendencies if economic system is working so properly, right? Similarly, if the personality system, that is political system, working properly, then how do you explain hate speech? How do you explain politicization of religion? How do you explain caste politics? How do you explain vote bank politics? Okay, if societal subsystem laws are working properly, how do you explain protest against those laws? Like for example, the recent protest that is staged by farmer, how would you explain if laws are working so properly in society? So these are some of the things. How do you explain the protest staged by the queer people against the heteronormative standards of society, which is not letting them to be acceptable or to be accepted by the larger heteronormative or heterosexual groups? So these are some of the issues that Talcott Parsons theory cannot explain. And lastly, if education is working so properly, how do you explain different kind of schooling crystallizing different kind of inequality in society? For example, there are, just like we have 4 different kind of caste in society, caste structure, similarly there is a hierarchy of schooling system in our society as well. We have private autonomous elite institutions like दून पब्लिक स्कूल, जिसको हम बात करें दून स्कूल जिसकी हम बात करते हैं, जो कि देहरादून में है. ओके, इस तरह के कुछ प्राइवेट एलिट स्कूल्स भी हैं, बोर्डिंग स्कूल्स देयर आर. एंड देन फाइनली देयर इज अ लोकल रीजनल स्कूल एज वेल, एंड बीच में गवर्नमेंट स्कूल भी आते हैं, कुछ ऑटोनोमस और कुछ आते हैं सेमी ऑटोनमस जैसे केंद्रीय विद्यालय। तो ये भी एक हायरार्की है, एंड एवरी स्कूल हैज डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ सेक्शन that school is catering to, and it explains crystallization of inequality in society. That school aims to make society inclusive. How do you explain feminization? Specifically, how do you explain that most of the girl child are being admitted to the government school and most of the male child, according to a different recent reports that were published by ASCR, that clearly says that most of the male members are being enrolled in the private school and the most of the female or girl children are being admitted in government school. So this explains the extent to which schooling is promoting gender inequality, schooling is promoting class inequality or caste inequality. Okay, still till date most of the Dalits, transgenders and women do not have access to schooling, either because of lack of toilets or either because of lack of proper facility. Okay, how do you explain, if religion is functioning so properly, how do you explain the rise of communalism? How do you explain the fascist tendency? How do you explain fundamentalism? How do you explain sectarian conflicts? Like for example, in Middle East we have Shia-Sunni conflict going on for decades. If religion is working so properly, how do you explain these issues? So that is one of, if family is working so properly, how do you explain the rise of individualism and the concept of live-in relationship? How do you explain the rise of single parent families? How do you explain the rise of different kind of homosexual families, what Keith Weston calls as family we choose? Those are the families that we choose. We are not born into those families. Those are chosen by the people who are lesbian or gays. So they form a family of its own type. So gay people, they know they would not get acceptability at par with the heterosexual people, and that is why they form peer along with different gays. So is the case with lesbians. So they form family of their own type, family we choose. This is what Keith Weston called them. So this is the problem with society that Talcott Parsons structural functionalist approach cannot explain. And if all the systems are working properly and each system is functional for the maintenance of other system or for the function of the society as a whole, then how do you explain family being dysfunctional for the women who are running those families, since women's labor is not paid for? And this is something that is very much in the news as well. Like for example, in the last 2-3 days, you must have realized that most of the articles are covering how the issue of women's unpaid labor is a very critical issue, and this is something that was also raised by the second wave feminist scholars. Okay, so these are some of the issues that Talcott Parsons is not able to explain, and this is something that you could have concluded your answer with. The structural functionalism although talks about harmony, cooperation, but this is not something that is the only thing which exists in society, because harmony coexists with conflict, that somehow functionalism is not able to explain, and that's where Marxism and feminism philosophies like this come very handy.